County, and we'll get additional numbers now, it appears, by tomorrow afternoon. But the numbers that have come in thus far show that in the 6th District, Michael Baumgardner is leading at the present time, and also in the representative seat up in that district, Kevin Parker, the incumbent, appears to be returning for another term, and he joined us on the live line at this time. Kevin, it appears as though you are winning fairly well.
Yeah, we're pleased with the numbers. We're hoping those numbers would hold, so we're happy with the results.
It doesn't appear as though now, with 25,000 votes left to count, that it's likely to change dramatically.
Yeah, the elections typically don't on a state legislative race or even county commissioner. The only way that they would is if there's a real strong demographic that didn't have any numbers in yet. Otherwise, those numbers are like a gigantic poll. They typically hold, not always, but typically.
Now, what does this mean now in terms of the House and Senate balances statewide? Not only your race, but what are you hearing across the state in terms of how several promising Republican races might possibly end up relative to the Senate and the House?
It's pretty interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of cleanup and ballot chasing the next 5 or 7 days, and I think there's possibly 5 to 7 seats in play with the result of that. We know one thing where we have shortened or reduced the gap between the Democrat majority in the state House, and that's significant because if we truly have shrunk that to 3 or 4 seats, that means that no Democrats get off on hard votes like they have in the past. It means that for the Democrats to get stuff done, they're going to need every single vote, and that's a different mentality than they've had, at least since I've been there since '09.
So then that is a net gain in clout, you're saying, for Republicans in the House?
Significantly.
What will that do on some of these key issues? Of course, the governor was hoping that the exact opposite would take place because he has a fairly ambitious agenda that he would like to get through the legislature this year, and it appears as though he may possibly find some tough sledding.
Yeah, he's got an aggressive. He's running for governor again as of tomorrow morning, and as a result, he's been very forthright about low carbon fuel emissions. He's been very forthright about the transportation package and some of his environmental issues, none of which in extreme will sit well with either the House or the Senate. While he wants to create green jobs, we're very much adamant about creating private sector jobs, and that's going to be a big differential. So he will have his back up against the ropes in a way he did not have his first 2 years. The question will be, how does he handle it? And I'm not convinced he'll handle it well.
What of the effects of the election on the legislature vis-a-vis the McCleary decision? Does this change any dynamic?
It does, but remember on the McCleary decision that we don't have clear instructions from the state Supreme Court, so we don't really know what they're asking for, other than we know that they want a definitive plan, but we do not have a dollar amount. I do think the state Supreme Court will get a definitive plan from us. We're already starting budget negotiations, or I shouldn't say negotiations, we're already starting budget talks. I've had a couple calls on that already. But at the same time, that Supreme Court is giving I think they're really treading on Article 8, Section 4, really treading on where the power comes as far as the purse strings of the state legislature, but they're also going to have a legislature that pushes back on them, and I think that's true even without this gain that the House is having. I think they still would have faced a legislature, Republican and Democrat, that's questioning the validity of their decision.
You are a student, obviously, of government and of elections and politics, and like to look at the broader picture. What does the message of the Republicans winning the United States Senate tonight, what message is there in that?
Well, they have a lot to do. So if the Republicans nationally, in my opinion, would be very wise to come together and come up with a very concrete plan. I think the celebration is tonight, but the work is tomorrow. There are a lot of hot-button issues. I think what we saw on the national trend is what happened in the state trend. I think we're in that wake, no doubt about it. I think on the statewide, if we look at the 1980-81 election in terms of McCleary, which I think is really important, we see a couple things. One is that we see that the 78 Dorn decision was done under a Democratic legislature. And what the Democrats did in '79 to try and live up to that Superior Court decision was to raise property taxes because they were in the same predicament we are. Then they get thrown out. And Mike, you probably know the numbers, but I think it was about 64-30 something, 66-33 or something.
That's
about
right.
The Democrats. Yeah, okay, going into 80. So then now the Republicans have control, and what do? They do the exact same thing the Democrats do. So we got Spellman, obviously, and then what happens is he gets thrown out, and so do all the Republicans. So that wave that went 66, that started Democrat, then went Republican, went right back the next year because the Republicans did the exact same thing the Democrats did. The message of history is that as Republicans, as they get to govern on a national level, they would be wise not to do the exact same thing the Democrats would have done. And that's true for us at the state. We would be wise not to do that as well.
Give me your thought on what President Obama does now, because the president has been very accustomed to digging in his heels, but he always had Harry Reid to run interference, and Harry Reid, as of January, is gone in terms of his ability to help the president. So what does that then mean to the ability of the Republicans to move legislation if the president becomes obstructionist?
In my opinion, the Republicans will not have had an easier time running legislation than they've had in several years until when January comes. But getting those bills signed into law will be another thing. In my opinion, President Obama has been checked out for the last, I'd say he's been checked out for the last 18 months. And I think we're going to see him checked out even more the next 2 years. I think he's proven to be a president that's more favorable of the monologue rather than the dialogue. He is not a Bill Clinton. A Bill Clinton learns from his mistakes, and he figured out how to govern with Newt Gingrich. I don't see Obama being that political savvy. I think he'll be a very frustrated president, and I think we're going to put a lot of pressure on him. But again, the Republicans don't get a free ride. There are those hot-button issues that they've got to govern wisely, but there's also an opportunity to put a lot of pressure on the president.
They need to get something done, though, don't they, Kevin? Doesn't the message of the public here tonight indicate that they want to see a Congress that actually accomplishes something?
Yeah, remember, in the last 3 years, the cover of Time Magazine, Newsweek, Economist, you name it, have all had cover stories about are the Republicans still relevant. That was less than 36 months ago. So this is not a mandate by the country. In my opinion, this is a second chance by the country. This is, listen, because the Democrats have screwed up so much and these tax and spend policies are destructive to our debt, our economy, our personal households, we're willing to give Republicans one more chance, and they're willing to look at us. I think we're seeing a crossover of the women vote. I think that's been significant. I think Kathy McMorris Rogers has a lot to do with that in her leadership. But this is the second chance Republicans are getting. If we screw it up this time, I don't think we're getting another chance for a long time. I think we have the opportunity to do something great. I believe we will, but it doesn't come without tough decisions.
Kevin Parker, always nice to talk with you. Thank you very much. Congratulations on what appears to be a re-election to your seat.
Thanks, Mike. Nice talking with you as well.
Thank you. Kevin Parker.